Be sure to donate to the American Heart Association using the button down below. Pokemon may be a light and cheery series on the surface, where kids whimsically go out into the world, catching their favorite fantastical monsters and beating the absolute snot out of each other. Oops, that's my Team Plasma ad read. I mean, doing battle to become the very best. But there are surprisingly many characters who bear very tragic backstories. I think my favorite example of this would be the Team Rocket trio, Jessie, James, and Meowth, although appearing as your cliché, goofy, Saturday morning cartoon villains who can never catch a break, the metaphorical Tom to Pikachu's Jerry. The three of them are all surprisingly kind-hearted people who all lived through tough circumstances, leading them to their current lives of crime. Meowth and James's backstories are well documented in the anime, with Meowth having his heart crushed by his first love, and James running away from a life of luxury to avoid being tied down by his psychotic fiancé and overbearing family who have no respect for his love of Pokemon. Jessie probably has the most tragic backstory of the three, but also the most unknown. In the summer of 1998, a 5-part radio drama series titled The Birth of Mewtwo was aired leading up to the release of the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back. The first part of this series details the journeys of a woman named Miyamoto, who happens to be an Ace Team Rocket member, and Jessie's mom. The former boss of Team Rocket, Giovanni's mother, sends Miyamoto to South America on a mission to retrieve Mew, and while patrolling the Andes Mountains, she finds it. Showing it a picture of her daughter, she tries to convince Mew to let her catch it. But in the middle of the harsh blizzard, the ground gives way, and her screams are the last we hear of her. This led to Jessie being put in a foster home, and eventually following in her mother's footsteps as a member of Team Rocket. Pretty heavy stuff for a trio of lovable goofballs. But it shows that good people can be ruined by tragic events. And sadly, this is just the first story of many. But speaking of Mewtwo, the anime also presents a remarkably darker take on its origin story than the one presented in the games. In the latter part of The Birth of Mewtwo, which eventually was adapted into an animated prologue for the movie, it's revealed that Mewtwo was not the first clone Team Rocket attempted to make. There were also clones of Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle who tragically passed away in testing before they had the chance to actually be born. Mewtwo would later use the blueprints of his friend's DNA to recreate their evolved forms, which he uses in the movie. But Mewtwo's closest friend in the womb, or, tube, if you will, was a young girl named Amber 2, a clone of Dr. Fuji's deceased daughter. In case you're wondering, Dr. Fuji is strongly implied to be the anime's version of Mr. Fuji. However, Amber 2 also tragically passes away before she can be brought back, leaving Mewtwo as the sole survivor of his childhood friends. Although Mewtwo can barely remember Amber by the time he awakens, her passing is implied to fuel his hatred towards humans who think they have the right to create artificial life. Mewtwo proves that lingering memories can be haunting, but what about those who don't have any? International Police member, codename Looker. Looker is a rather mysterious recurring character introduced in Pokemon Platinum. Although, if we are to follow the Pokemon timeline, he actually first appears in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, washing ashore at the Battle Resort with no memory of how he got there. Sometime after that, he joins the International Police and teams up with Nanu and a Faller who had lost their memories after traveling through an Ultra Wormhole. Unfortunately, on their mission to subdue a Guzzlord attack, their Faller colleague is killed. Sadly for Looker, this wouldn't be the only loss he suffered, as his partner Pokemon Krogunk was also killed sometime between the events of Pokemon Platinum and Pokemon X and Y. Amidst these many tragedies though, Looker does find the former Frontier Brain Annabelle washed ashore in Alola, also having lost her memories in a way that mirrors himself in Hoenn many years earlier. Not wanting to repeat the mistakes of the past, Looker takes the time to properly train Annabelle and the two form a good friendship. While the circumstances by which they got there were unfortunate, Looker and Annabelle for the most part seem to have overcome the struggles of their past. But the same can't be said for another eerily similar character. Subway boss Ingo is the latest member of the very mysterious "Hey, you're not supposed to be here" club, inexplicably falling through a hole in time and space that leads him to Hisui. And unlike the time-traveling protagonist, it's strongly implied that this was not intentional. As you travel with Ingo through the darkness of Wayward Cave, he struggles to recount the details of his past, not even fully remembering his brother Emmett. This, in many ways, makes him similar to Looker and Annabelle as a possible Faller. Both Ingo and Kogita also theorize that the portal above Mount Coronet is a gateway to several different dimensions, making it incredibly similar, if not the same, as an Ultra wormhole. What perhaps makes Ingo the most tragic character of all is that unlike the many others who eventually move past their traumatic events in life, Ingo is quite literally stuck in an unfamiliar land, with no memories and no way of returning home. There is some really good and, quite frankly, heartbreaking fan art of Emmett discovering his lost brother's clothing in a museum countless centuries after his presumed death. And it honestly kinda rips my heart out just looking at it, so if I had to see it, you do too. This is one of many reasons why I am hoping and praying for a Legends Unova game that hopefully gives our boy some much needed closure. Speaking of Unova, the king of Team Plasma is no stranger to sadness either. Natural Harmonia Gropius, more commonly referred to as N, and, well, who can blame him for shortening that name, kinda hard to bubble in on those testing sheets, was a young boy living among Pokemon in the woods due to unknown circumstances. That is, before he was quote-unquote adopted by Getsus, who molded him into a king that could carry out his own twisted schemes. N is a pure and innocent boy whose worldview was corrupted by one man. Believing Pokemon battles to be evil and immoral, his feelings reach the legendary Dragon of Unova, who recognizes his strong beliefs. And although N's journey across Unova slowly brings him back to his senses, I have always seen him as an excellent commentary on how growing up in an echo chamber and only having your ideas reinforced by others around you can be the worst thing for a person. He only sees issues in black and white. Pardon the bad pun, but he says so himself in Chargestone Cave, so I'm not entirely at fault for that one. N's feelings for his Pokemon friends are very tangible and real, there's no doubt about that. But Getsus takes full advantage of his love for Pokemon and turns it into something ugly for him to force upon the world. And moments after having his dream of Pokemon liberation shattered by the protagonist, the man he thought was his loving father reveals that the entire thing was a sham. That he never cared for him, that he never cared for Pokemon, and that he was controlling him like a pawn from the start. And then leaves on a journey for some much-needed soul-searching, but sadly never reunites with the one person he considered a true friend. Unless you played Pokemon Masters, which may not be canon, but at least there's one timeline where N gets his relatively happy ending. Perhaps the saddest fact of all, though, is that only 20% of people watching my videos are subscribed. So maybe subscribe to make me feel better, that would be nice. From one letter of the alphabet to two, we have the former king of Kalos, AZ. In his 3,000 years of life, this man has suffered every conceivable tragedy known to man. From losing his beloved partner Pokemon to being too tall to find new drip at the boutique. He is a walking embodiment of toxic possessiveness. His unwillingness to accept Floette's death is what spurs him to create the ultimate weapon and wipe out all life in Kalos. And ironically, only after being freed from the torment of his constant searching does Floette finally come back to him. Not only does AZ teach us about the importance of letting go, but also how revenge can lead you to horrible actions that you'll regret for a long time. And although he is still cursed with immortality, at the very least he can finally walk alongside his partner once more. Taking the crown for Pokemon's most dysfunctional family, though, and that's a surprisingly competitive race, we have the Aether Foundation family of Lusamine, Mon, Lily, and Gladion. Mon's disappearance into an Ultra wormhole caused Lusamine herself to grow more curious about the Ultra Beasts, and she slowly becomes more enamored with them, feeling as though they are her last connection to her long-lost husband. She even dresses Lily to resemble Nihilego because she loves this alien more than her own daughter. Eventually, this fractures the entire family, with Lily and Gladion deserting the paradise, searching for a way to bring their old mother back. Lily deals with an inferiority complex for the majority of the game for not being strong enough to help her mother, while Gladion lives a rough life as a Team Skull member just to get by. And just as they finally pull her back, her body is so feeble and weak from Nihilego's toxins that Lily ends up having to leave Alola altogether for her mother's treatment in Kanto, leaving behind all of the friends she had finally managed to make. And although Lusamine has changed to be a much more sane character in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, though they send some mixed signals with the cryogenically frozen Pokemon in her lab, so I'm not too sure about that actually, it's still very clear that she has an incredibly overprotective nature and goes as far to recklessly battle Necrozma in order to protect what little she has left. Though she ultimately fails on her quest to defeat Necrozma, she accepts her failures and grows as a person. Even when Mon finally returns to the Aether Paradise, Lusamine painfully accepts the fact that he's happier now with his amnesia than he would be if she told him about his past. Like AZ, Lusamine finds peace in letting go of the one she loves the most. But this time, he's gone for good. Finding himself in the middle of some comparable family drama himself, we have Arven. Arven grew up largely alone due to his parents being researchers of Area Zero, attempting to bring Paradox Pokemon to the present day. And although they eventually succeeded, they are killed during an expedition unbeknownst to Arven, who attempts to explore Area Zero himself to bring them back. But during his journey, his partner Mabostiff is critically wounded, and he devotes his studies to bringing it back to health. Just as Arven succeeds in finally revitalizing Mabostiff though, he heads to Area Zero a second time and finally learns the truth of his parents' fate. Unlike many of the other characters we've discussed today, I don't think Arven is meant to explicitly represent or teach us anything, other than maybe don't hate the friendly lizard boy until you know the whole story. Rather, he's just a character who has suffered. A lot. But he comes to terms with his parents' passing and vows to live more in the moment from now on, and that is a lesson that I think we can all take from him. By subscribing to the channel for more great videos! Are you even living if you're not subscribed? But I also gotta shout out my buddy Silver15B for becoming a channel member and all these other wonderful people. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys next time.